best people who are capable. What are the things that they're trying to do, and are those things viable? And we whittle it down to about 250 to give half a $1,000,000 to.
Right.
Which is great, because when I first started, I think YC only gave me $12,000.
What does the newest class of founders look like? And what problems are they trying to solve?
A good deal of them are focused on AI, bringing in large language models. That's a really exciting time for just software, period.
Demo day is sort of like a rite of passage.
Oh, definitely.
Right? What happens on demo day?
It's 1,000 investors, VCs, angel investors, people who have been there, and they often raise millions of dollars. And so that's a really powerful moment, because that big bump at the top of that graph that we saw, that's a moment of euphoria. And then, hey guys, it's back to work. Like, we're going to be in that trough of sorrow for a while, but we're going to make it to the promised land.
What do you say to the folks who are out there thinking, how do I get in?
Well, the big thing is, I think we really like people who are earnest. What we really care about is, are you solving a real problem? Can you show us the quality of your work? Can you access a market that nobody else can actually access?
So in 10 minutes, you decide whether to give someone a golden ticket.
That's right.
Are you making all the right decisions?
Well, we hope so, and that's why Demo Day exists. Those 1,000 investors come back year after year after year, because you'll never find a congregation of hundreds of startups in which, a dozen of them will probably go on to be worth $1 billion or more. The hard part is, it's not really about what happens in that 10 minutes. It's about the 10,000 hours that goes in beforehand. The best CEOs in the world are sort of jack of all trades, but master of one or two. And that isn't something that is in that 10 minutes or in those 12 questions. That's something in someone's life.
Are you really looking for people from around the world, or do people who are here have an advantage?
Lots of people come here just for the batch. They raise money, they build their community, and then they go back and become the best company in Mumbai, the best company in London. So, I think that this is a story that is San Francisco Bay Area based, but also one that radiates out into the entire world.
We talked about the pictures on the wall, and you said, hey, you got me. We don't have enough women. We haven't had enough women for a couple of decades now. What are you seeing in the numbers now?
I think representation matters a lot at the end of the day. The types of problems that people solve kind of come out of their own stories. It is important to us. It's important to me. At YC, we have more than 850 women founders who have gone through the program. And you're right, that's not enough.
What are you doing to change the ratio?
I think I look at the process, and we want the process to be something that is as open and inclusive as possible. There's a lot to be done, and we're not done.
We're seeing tens of thousands of people getting laid off from tech companies. How does this play out?
I think a lot of large companies started treating their employee base almost as a place to park resources and almost as a competitive moat versus the other giants. And when I think about the amount of talent that was sort of locked up in cushy jobs that could have been actually out there in the market making new technology, pushing things forward, I'm hoping a lot of them actually come over to startups and they realize, oh, this is what it's like to run fast again.
What's your advice for these workers who are getting laid off? It does sound a little trite to just say, it's time to build.
Right, it sure does. I think some of it is take stock, right? Getting much more connected to the problems out there, I think will lead to just a lot more direct access to, building equity, building businesses that really matter.
Well, speaking of equity, for years, tech workers have been paid in stock, and that was sort of, the ticket. You're taking a risk on this company. It could be worth zero, or it could, be worth millions,
Absolutely.
Right? We're seeing kind of the dark side of RSUs or getting paid in stock now. Do you think that's still the way it should work in Silicon Valley?
That's some of the magic of startups. I think this is about labor being able to access actual capital. And this is one of the most direct and most awesome versions of it. Some of the bad behavior we saw from startup founders was trying to reach for that $1 billion valuation because they wanted the headline out there saying that they're a unicorn now, but that comes at a cost, right? The focus on valuation and getting that next notch of valuation above all else, that comes at both a great personal cost to the founders themselves, but also to the employees.
So what do you think needs to change?
I think some of it is already happening, right? The revaluation of startups right now is starting, and it will continue. People are going to be a lot more mindful about, do I really need to do that $50 to $200 million raise?
So you're a few months into this job as CEO of Y Combinator, and Silicon Valley Bank collapses. What is your level of panic in that moment?
Well, I remember, I'm dropping my 7-year-old off Friday morning at 9 a.m. And then immediately I start getting texts and phone calls from founders saying, that was my only bank account, what do I do? Because it wasn't clear to me that people were going to give a bank called Silicon Valley Bank the benefit of any doubt at all, simply because of its name. This is not big tech getting need in an hour of need. This is a moment of little tech.
This whole SVB thing has made clear a lot of people look at Silicon Valley and see elites. Are they wrong?
Anytime you have power that is accumulated in the hands of the few, that's something we should be worried about. Little tech is competition, and competition is the way that we have actually vibrant markets that give consumers new choice, and that is actually a very important thing to protect.
How long do you think the downturn lasts? How hard does this get?
I guess it's so hard to tell, and I'm not a macroeconomist. Some people like to play that on Twitter, though. So I underestimated to what degree interest rates rule everything around us. It affects valuations. It affected the SVB crisis. If you work in crypto, you better pay attention. I mean, all of these things matter because the price of money is sort of shifting radically.
YC branched out into a lot of things, like a lot of funds did, to be honest, over the course of the last 10 years. You're now ending the later stage investing. Does that make it harder for a lot of the YC companies to then do follow-on rounds? Does that sort of clip their wings before they can even fly?
Well, I don't think so, just because the best thing we can do is take our own advice, and especially in times of sort of recentering, a reset in what's happening out there in VC. What are the things that make you truly unique, and really focus on those things? So that was a painful decision to make, but it was ultimately the right one for YC.
When you look at venture capital culture and the way it operates, do you see things that are broken?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part is often there's not alignment, right? If you're a junior VC, you're coming in, you might only be able to do 1 or 2 deals, 3 or 4 deals, period. And in those 3 or 4 deals, one better be a unicorn. And we see people bend over backwards, sort of put their own interests ahead of that of the founder. And sometimes that's systemic.
Do you think it's going to be harder for startups to raise money for the next 10 years? It's been a fruitful time. Is this just the new normal?
Well, I think today we're in the midst of this large language model explosion, and I think that might be the next platform. And those platforms will actually give rise to new platforms that we don't even know about yet. So, if you ask on a 10-year time frame, will there be more technology or less? I think there's going to be more. And if it's a 1 or 2 year time frame, we got to ask Uncle Jerome.
Between Microsoft and OpenAI and Google and Facebook and Apple and Amazon, is there enough room for startups to run when it comes to AI? Do they have room to really compete?
I think so. And some of it is we actually don't even know the physics of this market yet. It took many years of the search engine world and the search engine war before we figured out that Google and AdWords were going to be the winner. And I think we're right there, right again. I would never count out, the little startup who figures out a way to, fight against unbelievable amounts of capital or unbelievable amounts of market power. That's how we combat this idea that big tech is, too powerful. Guess who's going to fight against them? It's startups.
What's going to define the Garry Tan era of YC?
What I hope is that 1,000 flowers bloom at the end of the day. I also experienced this crazy place that gave me prosperity, and ultimately all I care about is that story continues.
How much are you working here versus home in San Francisco?
Well, we're San Francisco based, and work from home culture means that I'm in San Francisco pretty much all the time.
So So I hear Mr. Beast schooled you on your content creation.
Yeah, that's right. This was during the pandemic, and I got in touch with him on Clubhouse, and he gave me advice on thumbnail, title, and click-through rates, and all that good stuff. Welcome to the YouTube studio.
I love it. What do we got going on here?
Well, the number one thing that I give people advice about is get a really big softbox so you get like the really nice cinematic look.
Everyone needs a nice cinematic look.
That's right. It's important. I mean, it's sort of like wearing a suit to a nice meeting. Like having a good Zoom setup is, I think, increasingly important.
What have you found really resonates? Like what takes off?
The number one thing for me is just actually talking about the things I messed up. Like actually saying, hey, this is why my startup failed, or the time I messed up my pitch to Series A investors, or my co-founder disputes. Like those all were real things that became a problem for me. And then being real about that helps people understand, like, hey, this is, again, the long trough of sorrow. And here's how you get through it.
So it's being human,
Yeah.
being authentic. And actually, I feel like some folks in tech, and I won't name names, have trouble admitting when they're wrong.
That's fair. That's one of the salient features of going on Twitter sometimes. This is my favorite part.
Wow. You've got quite a view going on here. You walk down the streets of San Francisco, you have to admit it's different post-COVID.
The streets are different, but right down the street is what they call Cerebral Valley, which is sort of turning into the new Silicon Valley.
What is your role in San Francisco politics? I know you're doing a lot of tweeting.
Oh, yeah. Somehow Twitter gets me in trouble all the time. But my Twitter, in addition to being about startups, has accidentally also become really about what is the future of San Francisco and how do we make this a place for immigrants and immigrant families to actually come and do their thing, like for them to find their American dream here.
I mean, it is expensive.
It absolutely is.
There was this huge push to raise payroll taxes in San Francisco. That was supposed to help the homeless problem. A lot of companies left San Francisco as a result. Stripe, a Y Combinator company, for example. So now the city's taking in less taxes because the companies aren't here, and the homeless problem, it doesn't seem like it's been solved. Like, what do you think about that?
I'm never about, hey, we should lower taxes. I don't think that's the issue. When we have prosperity in tech, we should be able to share that because we want abundance and we need policies to actually get us there. Mm-hmm. I just want things to work. Can we meet in the middle? Can we find common sense things to do, common sense policies that work? Can we find politicians that represent us that are not at the extremes, but finding ways to work together? And that's what I want.
People look at you like this rich tech bro who wants to turn San Francisco into a utopia. Is that not the case?
I think a utopia is just another form of extremism. We have to look at what's possible. We have to look at the resources. And, I think that tech probably should pay its fair share.
How do you keep the soul of San Francisco, but also make it more attractive to everyone else?
For the longest time, the status quo is let's prevent people from building, let's stop people from coming here, let's make it unpalatable for people to move to San Francisco, and maybe that will make it okay. And I think that that's just the wrong solution. That's not a solution at all. That's putting your head in the ground. We should absolutely be making space for everyone. That's really what America is for me. That's what America has been for my family, and that's what I want for everyone in the world.
San Francisco for life?
You know it. This is the shining jewel that I go everywhere in the world, and the number one thing they want to hear about is how do we bring tech to our city? Like, this is a gift, and this is just getting started.